Hey, welcome back, everybody. A recent article in The Atlantic has people talking about, well, how people talk. It's called The Last Days of the Southern Drawl. Say it ain't so. It cites some recent studies that suggest young people are losing their Southern accents. I'm joined now by somebody who first raised this issue years ago. In fact, Jon Forrest, an associate linguistics professor at UGA. Jon, great to have you. You first co-authored a story, or a study rather, back in 2023. I remember reading it at the time and reading some of the fallout at the time. Here we are 3 years later. Has anything changed with your perception of the study? I mean, what's the state of the Southern drawl today, in your opinion?
For language change and stuff like that, 2 years is not a super long time, so it's pretty much the same thing. But what I'd say basically is that the pieces of the Southern drawl are going away. A lot of the things that people think of when they think of Southern accents are gone. But I wouldn't say necessarily that, like, we're not sounding Southern. It's just some Southern means something different nowadays than it used to.
Can you expand on that a little more? What are we losing that we once had when it came to our dialect?
Yeah, so a lot of what we're looking at is the pronunciation of particular kinds of vowels. So, like vowels, like in the words face. If I say face with a Southern accent, people immediately know. They're like, oh man, that sounds really Southern. A lot of that stuff is going away, but these are things that people really, really notice about the Southern accent. All accents in different areas have tons of things that make them up. Some of them we really notice, some of them we really don't. So some of the things that are a little more under the radar might be still kept around, but people don't pay as much attention to them. But some of these iconic things, like those vowel pronunciations, like face or time for time, those are going away.
So are you saying that I'm going to now be boiling my water instead of boiling my water?
A lot of people boil their water now rather than bowling.
Okay. Hey, look, from being at UGA, so many kids from the north are now migrating south to go to SEC schools. I mean, it's an astounding number right now. Are you starting to see that migration having an effect on the southern drawl?
So, not that particular migration, but that's a good point to bring up. Not necessarily kids coming down to go to SEC schools, but the big thing that we've pointed to and across a number of studies by me and other people is that since like the 70s or so, a lot more people in the United States have moved to the South, right? Like all the Sunbelt cities are really big, they're growing more and more every year. And that migration in brings a lot of people who sound different than people in the South used to. When you have a bunch of people together like that, accents often change. It's what we call like dialect contact. So when people are around a lot of other things, they have ways that they might want to sound that are different than the traditional Southern accent. And that's a big impetus for a lot of the stuff that we see changing right now.
Is that the same idea as code switching? Like how I might sound on air right now is going to be a little different from how I sound breaking bread with my family in Savannah over the weekend.
It's related for sure, right? Like when we know that like there are different ways to sound with different people, and that like sometimes it can be like friendly or like with my family, I might want to sound and have a southern accent, but sometimes people are like, hey, if I'm in a professional setting, this may not be taken seriously, which is not a good thing, but is probably a true thing. And so people will code switch there, and that is some of the motivation for why somebody might want to say, hey, maybe I don't want to have certain kinds of accents ever, not just in professional settings.
I remember when your study dropped a few years ago. I was actually living in Virginia at the time, and we were talking about it on TV there. Are you surprised with sort of the widespread interest in this topic?
Yeah, yes and no. Maybe quite as big as it is. That was a little surprising, but like often for those of us who study dialects and accents, people are naturally curious about this stuff. Every time I present my research, people are like, oh, this is really neat. I want to ask you questions about my family or where I'm from. And I think it's part of who we are. So that part, not surprising. I think it's really natural for people to care. For national news to pick it up, a little less common, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, accent is part of our identity. What do you think is lost when we lose the accent that, we've had for generations?
Yeah, it can be losing something, right? Like, I think accent is tied to identity, but it is always changing, right? Like, I sort of open with saying, like, we're reforging what the South means because the changing of the accent is not necessarily a loss. but a reinterpretation of what the South is and what it could be. But we don't want to say, hey, well, this is something we shouldn't think about or keep around or record or anything like that. A lot of what linguists want to do is keep people's voices. We have lots of people's recordings who do have these Southern accents, and it's good to know like where we came from so that we know where we're moving.
Is there anything the everyday Georgian can do to try to preserve the Southern accent?
Oh, that's a great question. Preserve it. Like my take on this is always that preserve what you want to preserve about how you do things, right? Like I'll often sit down and tell people, like talk to people about like what does it mean to you to be Southern? For some people, the accent is really important for that. For some people, it's not. For some people, it's like, well, the accent isn't it, but like I care that I'm polite. I care that like, I love sweet tea, I love biscuits. Like culture is really broad, accent's a part of it. But keep around what you want to keep around. I know a lot of people like have picked up y'all. That's kind of grown actually. So that's definitely a piece of the South that feels like it can be maintained, is sort of it's got a new second life where it's stronger even outside the South. So that's one thing for sure.
Jon Forrest, an associate linguistics professor at UGA. We'd love to have you back another time, or another time, as we used to say.
Good to see you.
Thank you so much, sir.